Welcome to Escape the Noise, a podcast about hiking, mental health, and everything in between. I'm Joe Vogel, your host. We're coming to you from the Silicon Slope studio in downtown Provo, Utah. Our guest this week, Mackenzie Wing, Mack for short. Mack is an avid hiker who works in the mental health field. She grew up in Dallas, Texas. When she first moved to Utah in college, she found herself struggling to find balance and direction. That's when she turned to hiking. There's a lot of kind of jumping off points that I could find in your story, but I thought something that was interesting is you talked about how you came out here for college, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned that it was when you came out for college that you really kind of found yourself, and also that you found hiking, and that those were kind of intertwined. So I was wondering if you could kind of talk about that.
Yeah, sure. So I came out here for college right out of high school when I was in Texas, and then I moved here to Utah to start at UVU, Utah Valley University. And I was just kind of going through the motions every day. And, I did transfer to Oklahoma for a year and a half in between. So when I came here for the second time is really when, and I came here because I really found that I missed the just environment of Utah and being close to the mountains and so many things to do outdoors, and of course family and different aspects of the people too. But it was really, I was just kind of trying to find where I fit in the world and within myself and the relationships I had. So when I moved here for college and came to UVU for the second time, I started hiking for a variety of reasons, but that's really when I discovered such passion that I had for it, and it became one of my favorite things to do, and now definitely is my favorite thing to do. And Utah is just so great because you have so much easy access to trails, and there's so many things to do, and especially compared to the South where I was raised, Texas, Oklahoma. Those are very flat lands. There's
a little bit different.
You can go to the lakes, but they're muddy and they're disgusting, and the water quality in Oklahoma is as bad as the air quality is here sometimes. So there's not as much to do outside, especially for free, let alone with such great weather that we have here.
Right.
So Utah just proved to be this amazing place to explore. And through exploring is when I connected with myself and found so much joy of life.
Awesome. So backing up a little bit, right? You talk about how when you were living in Texas, right? Texas at first?
Yeah, Texas for high school and then Oklahoma for a year and a half of college.
So you'd come out here to Utah in the summers or just for breaks, right?
Yes.
And you'd hike with your family and kind of do some of these places. You actually told a really funny story about being an angsty teen and hiking Mount Timpanogos and not loving it too much.
Yeah. As a kid and really through my teenage years, I did not like to be told when to work out or how to work out or really what to do, probably like every other teenager out there. But when I first hiked Timpanogos for the first time, I was 15 years old, and my mom will laugh because she will remember the torment I put her through that day. I think I was even with my two younger siblings on the trail with her. And there was that last stretch. Anyone who has hiked Timp will know, but when you're coming up from the Aspen Grove side and that last stretch to the saddle just ends up going straight up.
Yeah.
And it's dirt and you end up sliding a lot on your tushy sometimes. And I was hands and knees crawling up that mountain with tears down my face because I was so upset for being forced on this trail and let alone with my family. And I threw a fit and pouted and gave my mom the silent treatment the rest of the day. So my first time on Timpanogos was, or at least the summit of Timpanogos was not very positive, which is funny thinking now because I love it so much.
I think a lot of people, I think especially when you're younger, if you don't kind of have the spirit of like, why are we doing this really hard thing? Because Timpanogos is hard. It's not just like a 2-hour hike. It's a long hike. And yeah, I think you kind of have to embrace what that is, right? And sometimes when kids are younger, they don't quite.
Yeah, there are some troopers out there. I mean, there are very young kids who end up doing it, and they seem to be so smiley. I remember getting up to the summit one time, and I saw a little girl that was, I mean, she had to have been like 5 or 6, and she was just with her dad, and they just got up to the shack, and that was that. And we were all like, wow.
No, it's amazing. Like some of the people you see going up and down, like because I hadn't hiked it in forever before I came back from Massachusetts. And I was kind of a little almost like embarrassed that I was having so much of a hard time. And
there's a wide range.
It was like these little kids.
I know it's humbling, but it's also inspiring because so many people can do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that it's just right here, right? Yeah. And it's so close and accessible. For so many people. So when you, fast forward a little again, and you're back here in college, what was it that really kind of made you think? You talk about kind of struggling to fit in here a little bit. Being from out of state, right? Sometimes just being trapped in your dorm and like just going to work, coming home, and this kind of rut you were in, right? What was it that kind of made you think, oh, hiking could be kind of a entry point into this different life? Yeah,
I would say, and I kind of grew up familiar with the mountains. I would visit family every summer. We'd drive up from Texas, come to Utah every single July, it felt like, throughout my whole childhood. So I was familiar with the mountains. They weren't too new to me, but exploring trails, especially by myself, was definitely something new that I haven't done and was kind of wary about. Really what made me switch was just how I felt like I was missing something in my life. There was a piece that just didn't feel like it was filled in any way. And a lot of that had to do with the way I mentally was during college. I was just really struggling with really just depression and anxiety at the time. And it was the anxiousness that registered very physically, for like just feeling like I couldn't breathe. I couldn't get this like ball of restlessness and sense of dread out of my chest. And on the depressive side, I just wasn't very motivated to do much. And I didn't feel creative. I didn't feel like I was just going to college and going to work. Right. And I didn't have any hobbies necessarily. And I didn't have very many friends, especially girlfriends, which are so important to connect with, especially in those young adult years. So I just kind of one day said, enough is enough. I'm sick of feeling trapped, like I'm in the same motions of just surviving the day. Yeah. So I just decided to take my dog and go out on a trail that I've never been on before. I downloaded the All Trails app and I sporadically joined like 8 different Facebook hiking groups so that I could read all about it because I had never explored trails on my own. So I just kind of decided enough was enough and I wanted to explore the mountains and do something new. And I remember the exact trail I went on. It was actually on my birthday, like probably 7 years ago, 5 to 7 years ago. And it was just so fun and freeing. And I was proud of myself for kind of taking that step of a challenge and something that made me a little anxious because I was unfamiliar with it. I was uncomfortable with the idea of doing it by myself. But after just that one little threshold of an activity that I forced myself to just, A, go out in the car and drive, B, get to the trail, and C, start it. Once you're there, it's pretty hard to turn back. Yeah. So that really kickstarted my love for hiking. And that's when I found that it made my inner fears and anxieties so much better and more able to live through.
Yeah. Did you have any apprehensions about like solo hiking when you were first getting into it? I love going out by myself, but I'm just wondering, like when you were first, picking this up and like new trails and new places, like did you feel any anxiety about just doing it by yourself?
Surprisingly, I don't remember being too worried, which is kind of funny to think about because especially as, a solo female, that adds another sense of dangerousness a lot of the times. But I do have my dog with me on any trails that allow them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's a little scary looking to people. He's a mutt, but he's so friendly, but he kind of gave me a little bit of security on the trails, and he really did help me kind of start enjoying them in that way. But I wasn't the pull for trying and exploring that new activity and embracing the beauty of the mountains and that sense of accomplishment outweighed any kind of fear or doubts of being alone.
Right.
And then I just learned to love it more than anything else. And that solo trail time really is so fulfilling inside, and it's therapeutic in so many ways. So it's really important for me now to continue having solo hikes every now and then so that I can kind of connect with myself and just ease those burdens and get through those thoughts if they're scrambled or stressed.
Yeah, I thought that was one of the, when I asked you kind of in the written responses, what were the things that you loved about hiking, right? And you kind of just hit on two of them. One is the physical aspect of it, right? And the confidence that gives you, and like the sense of doing something that's hard, right? That's physically demanding, right? There's something there that kind of, I think, correlates with the other physical kind of anxiety and dread that we're, some of these things that we experience physically in terms of stress and anxiety, we can almost combat those, right, with the physicality of hiking, right?
Yeah.
But then the other one has to do with mental health, right? And our tagline at Timpanogos Hiking, escape the noise, right?
Yeah.
Of being able to get away from everything enough and having that time. And this is why I love solo hiking, and I'm guessing you do too, is that you can hear yourself think in a clear way, right? Like sometimes when we're down here, right? You there's all this stuff, circulating in your head, but when you're there, somehow you're still thinking, but you're thinking in a different way. Can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah, because as humans, I haven't met anyone who doesn't have those thoughts just of everything in life constantly going around their head, inner dialogues, or just thinking about one thing while you're doing another. And it can be really overwhelming in life. And in the city, when you're driving to work, you're worried about all these people around you, and it's hard to focus on yourself and just connecting to where you are in that moment. So those thoughts, they don't turn off when you're out in the mountains on a hike, but you're able to think about them a little slower almost, and kind of compartmentalize which ones are important and which ones don't matter as much as you thought while you're in that hustle bustle mode. So having those thoughts, it's easy to get wrapped up in the world, and having those thoughts kind of bleed into the earth as you're hiking. You're focusing on your 2 feet moving. You're looking up at these beautiful different sights. You're saying hi to the occasional person, or just being present in that moment and feeling what you feel and being around you and feeling kind of small in the world. It's just so freeing from that stress. Really escaping the noise is very therapeutic.
Yeah, there's a simplicity to it, right? Like when you talk about just even hearing your steps, right? There's something that is just really therapeutic about that, right? Like your feet on the ground, you basically have one objective, right? Like in life, we have like a million things swirling, right? But like when you're on the mountain, like you're just trying to get to a place, right? From point A to point B, hopefully enjoying it along the way too.
Exactly.
But it's a very kind of simple thing, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is important for our brains just to kind of do an activity like that. I was interested too, because I'm a very creative person, and you kept mentioning creativity as part of it, right? That you're getting away, but it also is really helpful to your creativity.
Yeah, I didn't really know this before, but when I started hiking, that's kind of when I started a separate hiking Instagram, and I just posted 3 photos from every hike I was on. I chose my 3 favorite, and I just kind of made this little scrapbook. I didn't even advertise it to people. I just kind of had it there, and I made it separate from my personal account so that I could not annoy everyone that knows me with like 900 nature pics all month. But I just started really enjoying this captured beauty of the mountains, and I did scrapbook a little bit while I was young. So having that digital photo to remember that exact trail and that exact moment of time and feeling of that trail was so important for me to remember. And I scroll back to many years ago to see those pictures and just see what I wrote. And I do remember that exact feeling that I had, especially in my early hiking days.
Yeah.
I would try out all these trails I've never, ever explored before. I mean, there was one on the Alpine Loop. It's called Primrose Overlook. I looked at all trails, the Behold app, but I found that trail on all trails and I didn't do as much research. And I just kind of set out on the trail, not knowing where it would take me. And when you get to the end, it's one of the prettiest views of Timpanogos that you can get without having the hardness of a tougher hike. And I just happened upon it. I didn't know that that's what the end goal was. And I just remember being completely in awe of this magnificent mountain ahead of me. And I remember that exact feeling now, looking back at those pictures of like this surprise view from a hike. And yeah, it's things like that that I love sharing with photos and a lot of different videos now, and just even painting. I took pictures of a few different trails, and over the years I paint little miniatures of the hike as best as I can. I'm no expert at painting, but it's fun to have and just gather that creativity from just the beauty of the earth. And I look at mountains as I drive or as I hike even, or I'm like, I want to hike that. I want to get to the top of that peak. And in the same way, I see like a fall landscape and I'm like, ooh, I want to paint that. I want to paint those colors or those trees and put it on something to.
Do you have a favorite season for hiking?
That's tough. I think I'm definitely a spring person. I love the new life aspect of the season and how like wet it is. There's just so much river flow and new growth, greenery and flowers. So I'm a spring. Do you have a favorite?
It's probably late spring. Certain like Mount Timpanogos, you really can't hike.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know when the earliest you've hiked it is. I think maybe
end of June
or July.
On a good year. Yeah.
So that one's tougher to do in the spring.
That's true.
But yeah, I'm with you. I think after the winter, you're just so eager to get out, and I actually haven't done a lot of winter hiking. It's something that I want to do now that I'm back in Utah.
Yeah.
Get into that a little bit more because I was just hibernating this winter.
Yeah. Sometimes you need that. And it's an antsiness that winter will bring. I'm so ready for warmer weather and dry trails. There's nothing like a trail that you don't have to stomp through snow on.
Exactly. Or mud, yes.
Or mud. Yeah, that's the one downside to spring is how muddy it gets. So kind of depends. Yeah,
so you, another thing, so we talked about solo hiking and how fulfilling and wonderful that can be, but it sounds like another thing that hiking did for you is connection, right, with other people. Through some of these Facebook groups or just being out there, through stuff that you share on your Instagram. It sounds like you've connected with a lot of other hikers.
Yeah, so many people in this community. And this Utah, like Wasatch Front community of hikers, trail runners, dog owners. It's really incredible how much people connect and support each other. It was those many years ago when I started hiking and I joined that Facebook group that I met some of my now best friends that are hiking is our number one and our dogs are right up there with it. So it's those people that I met that we have really just flourished in friendship, and we've shared so many adventures and memories together. And even that in itself gave me the confidence to kind of nourish that into my own like group hikes if I plan them and invite people that haven't been on Timpanogos before, and I take them up so that they feel comfortable doing it for the first time with someone that's familiar with the trail. So I have gained a lot of friends, acquaintances, and connections through my social media and Facebook, and just, knowing someone that knows another and saying, let's go on a hike together. And it's just so fun to connect with different people. And most of these people share the same story. They find themselves on the trail and learn to love life and just enjoy the beauty and connection with themselves and the earth and other people. So I think it is really special how this community brings each other together with the shared love of nature and the mountains.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to do this podcast, is so that people could hear from somebody like you and realize, because I think sometimes people are intimidated by it, especially doing like a big hike like Timpanogos.
Yeah.
What do I bring?
Mm-hmm.
Am I even going to make it? Right?
Yeah.
Like, am I going to get like halfway? And we hear these questions all the time in our store. People come in and they ask us, all kinds of questions. So, we thought it would be really valuable for people, to hear firsthand from avid hikers like yourself, and realize like, you were a novice once too, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things I love about hiking is that there's not like anybody can do it, right? Just about. And there's not, you really can just throw on some shoes and some shorts and a backpack and, obviously for the longer hikes, you got to be a little bit more prepared.
Yeah, please be prepared.
But it's a pretty easy entry point, right?
Yeah.
For most people. So
yeah, and we're so lucky in this area of Utah where the trails are accessed so close to us. And yeah, your store is in such a perfect location to get people coming down from Timp up to Timp or just any trails around there. So you do have this community of people that have a love for one of the best mountains in Utah. And it's really cool to see that. And especially like we talked about earlier, so many people that hike Timpanogos are different ages from super young to super old. There was that guy that, hiked it, every day for a full summer or something. And it's those inspiring stories that can kind of help people get out there and try it for themselves, even if they start a little bit. I started somewhere. I thought 3 miles was a good hike, and now I'm up to, many more than that as just a regular weekend hike. And anyone can build up to it or keep it as they want. The trails are very DIY in that sense.
Yeah. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Mack. We'll continue the discussion in our next episode, including some of Mack's more interesting encounters with wildlife and how hiking has given her more confidence in other aspects of her life. Thanks again to Mack for joining us. You can find her on Instagram at Explore and Hike. Escape the Noise is produced by Timpanogos Hiking Co. I'm your host, Joe Vogel. A big thank you to Kai Bradford for his assistance with scheduling and production, to the Wildfires for our intro music, and to Silicon Slopes and Weston Tanner for hosting us and helping us make it all happen. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you again next episode.